Start by debunking a myth. That I know Kevin Trokey has an iPad 2 back there. I don't know if anyone else does. But have you heard this? Apple has coined 2011 as the year of the iPad 2. Okay? That's not true. It's not true at all. In fact, 1997, I believe, was the year of the iPad 2. 1997 is when Steve Jobs came back to Apple to lead it. Remember that? Okay, so he was living in the shadows of IBM, Microsoft, HP, Dell. Okay? And when you think about Apple and Macs back in 1997, they didn't have a place in the business world. And one of the first things that Jobs did when he became CEO was to do a commercial. And I'm going to play this 1-minute commercial for you that he ran back in. And the video is a little sketchy, but I want you to listen carefully to the message that he's sending.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Every time I watch that, I still get goosebumps. Think different. If you couldn't see that at the end, that was the final message. Think different. Now, going back to 1997, I believe that Steve Jobs sent that message not to the world. It wasn't a commercial. It was to his own people. It was a challenge that he was putting on his own culture to be innovative and to think differently. So let's look at some numbers. In 1997, when this commercial came out, came back to Apple, the stock price was $4.20. Is my audio cutting out? Anything I should do? Think different, right? Let's go over here. There we go.
That's right.
So, but when Jobs came back, the stock price was $4.20. How many people bought it back in 1997? Should I turn this off? Anybody buy it back then? Wish we did. You maybe wouldn't be here right now. Well, look, let's fast forward today. In 2011, the stock price is just a shade under $350 a share. Over the last decade, look at what happened to their share price. I really believe it is that commercial back in 1997 that sparked the innovation that they needed to get there, and the iPad 2, Kevin. Now let's contrast that to Microsoft and HP. You can't even see their stock price on that line, okay? Because there's such a dramatic contrast from what happened at Apple compared to Microsoft and HP. So in 97, when they're living in the shadows, they are now certainly casting the shadow. Okay, so we're not Apple, okay? We're talking about innovation. You almost have to have an obligatory reference to them. But when we think about our own organizations and we think about what do CEOs want, and I know everyone in here isn't a CEO. If you're not, you're more equipped to answer this question, because CEOs want everything. But when you get right down to it, we found that, as Larry said earlier, what CEOs are looking for is long-term shareholder value. He mentioned it earlier in his presentation. It's not any longer a financial calculation. It's no longer EBITDA times a multiple. It's really your culture. Okay, so how do you get shareholder value? Well, I think we have to look at this and work backwards. So when we ask how do you get shareholder value, the common answer is we need to grow. We're all in here to grow. We were here yesterday because we want to grow. We're hiring producers. We're looking for new things, new sources of revenue, but it's all about growth. Well, how do you get growth? You got to innovate. You got to come up with new ways of selling new products, new services. But then how do you get innovation? And this is really what we're going to talk a lot about today with James, is you have to have a culture of innovation. So if your culture rewards innovation, that's one thing. If it doesn't, you're not going to get innovation. You can't just put innovation in your mission statement and expect to magically get it. It doesn't happen that way. So you have to have this culture. And how do you get the culture? Well, it goes back to this vision, a bold vision that you have, like Jobs had for his organization, that you have for yours. But why is it that it seems like nobody gets it? Do you ever have that feeling that you have this bold vision, it's in your head, but it seems like nobody gets it? Well, I think it's a condition that I refer to as the innovation gap. Larry and I have talked about this. He maybe shared that with you as well. But how do you bridge this gap? And when you go from this vision to growth, you have to have the culture of innovation. So I'm going to share some experiences when we look at what kinds of things block innovation. There's a handout in your sheet, but for me, some of the things that I felt were blocking innovation in my organization was IT. IT was blocking HR policies, saying, no, you can't do that. You got to do it this way. We just changed. Why are we changing again? Have you heard that one? You know, let's just let this last thing work for a little bit before we change it. And you know what? Whenever you change or innovate, it could go wrong. It may not be the right thing. So those were some of the things that were blocking innovation in me and my organization. And when you get right down to it, it's really, we're talking about change. And as leaders talk about change, it's risky. You know, change leads to risk. And whenever you have risk, you have this potential of fear. Fear stops progress, stops innovation. So that's one of the things that we're trying to root out in our culture, is this fear of taking risk. One day, I was feeling so blocked. I took my iPad and I drew this corporate hierarchy. I was feeling that I was so such a stranglehold on me with not having the technology and the IT to do that. I thought IT was running our organization. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but I did. So how do we build this culture? How do we get this vision? One of the things that I've learned is that I've explained our vision over and over, and I'm sure you have as well, but it may be in your head, but if you get your team to help you build it, it's far better, and it will work far better if you do. So that's the drivetrain of how to get to shareholder value. Again, I really believe our competitive edge of all the people in this organization, being a part of this organization, is our culture of innovation. That's what people that are going to write us a check somewhere down the line are going to look for. The financial calculation will be there, but it's really that culture of innovation. So we're going to get into